CNN majorities of likely Democratic caucus goers say they're optimistic, fired up, feminists and exhausted by politics. A new poll from CNN, Des Moines Register, Mediacom finds fewer soon-to-be caucus attendees consider themselves socialists than capitalists, and almost a quarter are regular Twitter users.
3 in 5 likely Iowa Democratic caucus goers say they're fired up, especially those who are very liberal 76%, extremely enthusiastic about their first-choice candidate 76%, and have locked in who they'll caucus for 71%. Likely caucus attendees who say they'll definitely attend rather than probably attend the caucus are more likely to describe themselves as fired up 66%.
But just as caucus goers are fired up, they're also pretty tired. Over half 54% say they're exhausted by politics. Lynn Richards, a retired social worker in Iowa, says she can't turn on the TV without being bombarded by political ads.
There are some days that I don't even turn the TV on, Richards told CNN. You just get so sick of it. I'll be so glad when the caucuses are over. At least we'll hear a little less about it. My kids were here over the holidays and they're like, for crying out loud, is that all you get on TV?
Iowa poll shows a tight four-way race in final weeks before the Democratic caucuses.
The kicker? Richards is a precinct chair for the Democratic caucus in February. When asked if being tired of politics conflicts with being fired up about the election, she said, "We've got to get people to vote or we'll be in big trouble."
Read more.
Close dialogue. Sign up for CNN's Meanwhile in America, a daily analysis of U.S. politics for global readers. Sign me up. No thanks. By subscribing, you agree to our privacy policy. Close dialogue.
Almost a quarter of likely Democratic caucus goers identify as regular Twitter users. Caucus goers under the age of 35 are the most likely to be active on the site 37%, followed by those who are caucusing for the first time in 2020 36%, and those who identify as very liberal 36%. Likely caucus goers who plan to caucus for Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren are more likely than other candidates' supporters to be active Twitter users 34%.
Alex Ernst, a 31-year-old Iowa caucusgoer, calls himself a frequent Twitter user, although he cautions against the dangers of the site.
"It can be really useful and really dangerous," Ernst said to CNN. "Part of being a responsible person in the political sphere is trying to figure out what's real and what's not, what are just opinions. Even the littlest thing that someone does can be twisted into something that it's not. There's a danger in that, obviously."
Almost 3 in 5 likely Democratic caucus goers in Iowa self-describe as a feminist 57%, even with an early January 2016 survey. Those who identify as very liberal are more likely to describe themselves as feminists 84%.
Iowa poll, Iowa voters divided over impeachment.
Some likely Iowa caucus goers also consider themselves woke 39%, centrists 34%, or capitalists 33%. Centrist is on par with 2016 at 32%, while the number who identify with capitalism has dropped since then from 38%. Those who live in the suburbs 49%, and those who report an income of $100,000 or more a year 48%, are more likely to identify as capitalist.
Those who describe themselves as very liberal are more likely to describe themselves as anti-Wall Street 65% and as socialist 63%. Same goes for supporters of Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, 53% describe themselves as anti-Wall Street, and 61% as socialist.
Jason Snell, a 42-year-old artist in Iowa, identifies as a socialist because of the time he's spent in countries like Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Snell told CNN, "People paid higher taxes, but they got so much support for families. So it's a system that puts people over money. Capital and money is the top priority in a capitalist society. Where with socialism, the top priority is society and social politics."
A little more than a quarter of likely Iowa caucus goers 28% identify as angry at big tech companies and 24% consider themselves cynical.
But through all the complicated feelings surrounding the caucuses, a huge majority of likely Democratic attendees consider themselves optimistic 78%. Even though that's down 10 percentage points from the 2016 survey, majorities across all groups say they're an optimist.
When asked about being an optimist, Ernst told CNN, "It's a heck of a lot more work to get pissed off about stuff sometimes. It's just not worth it."
The CNN, Des Moines Register, Mediacom poll was conducted by Selzer & Co., of Des Moines, Iowa, January 2 through 8 among a random sample of 701 likely Democratic caucus goers reached on landlines or cell phones by a live interviewer. Results for the full sample of likely caucus goers have a maximum margin of error is plus or minus 3.7 percentage points.